look at Floyd. Like Floyd spends money like it's a tap. Like he's got a tap, just like unlimited amount of money. Money's just flowing. And even as much money as he's made in his career, which he's probably made as much, if not more money than any boxer ever. Like there's all these lawsuits. Like he hasn't been paying things and he owes money on this and owes money on that. And it's like, and then he's got to come out of retirement.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. I think it's just the lifestyle that Floyd lived.
Yes.
I think he can't fathom to just live a modest lifestyle. It's like he got to be lavish.
Right. He's got to have those videos where he shows you all the watches, where he opens the case up, you know.
All the money. He got to show that he got $1 million in his backpack. And, you know, he got the latest watch and the latest car and look what I just bought.
And when you get into latest watches and latest cars, you get into that, like, boy, that money goes quick.
Yeah.
Bugattis are like 3 million. There's watches that are 3-5 million. That's crazy. So you buy a watch and a car, you're down 10. That's...
Joe Rogan didn't quietly express his doubts when Floyd Mayweather's real estate claims came up. On his podcast, he leaned over the table and said, "Wait a second, that math doesn't add up." It wasn't a whisper, it was a full-on call-out. Rogan's tone made it clear he wasn't buying the story that Floyd owns dozens of buildings worth tens of millions. He highlighted the difference between flashy claims and verified assets, suggesting that Floyd's public image of wealth might not completely match reality.
And one of the reasons why people watch him fight is not because he's like Mike Tyson, just goes out and destroys people. They like watching him fight because they hate him. Because he talks so much shit and he's like, look at my $1 million watch, look at my fucking jet, look at my house, look at this. He's constantly showing you all these things that he has. Like he'll lay out watches in a hotel bed, like this is $1 million worth of watches. This watch goes for $2 million. And they're like, this is my small watch that I take sometimes, but when I'll show you, when I'll show up, I bring out the big boy and it brings out this watch that's covered in diamonds. It's like $5 million. And so you hate him.
Floyd owes like $1.4 million in jewelry debts, that Floyd owes like hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent for a private New York apartment. His private jet fuel, he's not paid hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fuel and maintenance. He put up one of his jets that I think he even sold, but one of his jets and I want to say one of his properties, like one of his homes, up as collateral for a $54 million loan from an individual, from a billionaire that had a 9% interest on the loan.
This is where things start to get really interesting. Floyd Mayweather built the entire Money Mayweather persona around the idea of limitless wealth. We're talking stacks of cash, luxury cars, designer watches, and a financial empire that seemed untouchable. Every appearance, every interview, every social media post reinforced this larger-than-life image. But once you start digging into actual business reports, the picture starts to look a lot more complicated.
To the IRS, how much does he owe?
It's in the $20+ million range.
It's a lot of money, man.
But it's not something that he's been, it's not like deception.
No.
It's just neglect to pay.
Neglect. And it's also like, I think, and there is like a truth to this. He makes so much money. There's probably a point when they're like, hey, it's time to pay your taxes. And you go like, all right, here's a check for $25 million. That's an incredible amount of money. And then they go, that's true, but you owe 50 more. And he's just like, that can't be right.
You know,
I've given you $25 million.
Yeah, he's bought over 100 luxury cars from the same dealer and always pays in cash.
He has $15 million worth of cars.
Congrats. You can sell them.
For example, Business Insider reported that 2 of Mayweather's commercial properties have already faced foreclosure. On top of that, his Las Vegas strip club building reportedly risked being seized because of unpaid property taxes. There are also lawsuits claiming he hasn't paid for luxury watches and jewelry, which Floyd has disputed. Suddenly, the conversation shifts from bragging rights to real financial scrutiny. The glitz and glamour of Money Mayweather meets the hard reality of property disputes, loans, and unpaid bills.
Floyd Mayweather is made, and because he's the best in the history of pay-per-view at making sure that the money ends up in his pocket. He is or has been a businessman as an athlete that almost doesn't have a peer because he owns all his own stuff as an independent. Your spending has to be so fiscally irresponsible to lose the amount of money that Floyd Mayweather has lost that it is almost beyond anything that is reason. It's not merely fiscal insanity. It's something that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. And another sign of him maybe in financial trouble is, as of February 2026, Floyd Mayweather has initiated a massive $340 million lawsuit against Showtime Networks and former executive Steven Espinoza. So he's trying to get some bread right now.
The estimate is that he made over $1.2 billion over the course of his career. And just
the report even compared similar situations in Las Vegas, noting that 2 Trump condos were temporarily seized for unpaid taxes but later returned after payment. There's also mention of a $54 million loan that used Floyd's homes, private jet, and businesses as collateral. Whether these numbers are exaggerated or misinterpreted, they clearly show a gap between Floyd's public money persona and the financial reality. Joe Rogan's skeptical questions had already stirred debate, but then Chael Sonnen jumped into the discussion like someone who believes subtlety is overrated.
They said that, I mean, things that they said in this article were insane. That Floyd owes like $1.4 million in jewelry debts, that Floyd owes like hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent for a private New York apartment. His private jet fuel, he's not paid hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fuel and maintenance. He put up one of his jets that I think he even sold, but one of his jets and I want to say one of his properties, like one of his homes, up as collateral for a $54 million.
Chael didn't hold back. Looking at the "Is Floyd broke" headlines, he asked, "Why are we even pretending this is shocking?" Then he flipped the question back to the audience. If you wake up and go to work every week because you need money, why would it suddenly be strange for a boxer to keep fighting for the same reason? That's peak Chael logic, half brutal honesty, half troll energy. He then moved on to dismantle the mythology around boxing paydays, explaining that the billion-dollar earnings and enormous pay-per-view numbers we often hear about usually come from press releases, not verified financial records. According to him, nobody from the companies processing the pay-per-views has confirmed these figures. That single point throws years of boxing hype into question.
With that, and why are we attempting to tease Floyd? Is Floyd? Yes, he's broke. Of course, he's broke. He's a boxer. Did they say can't read? That's not to tease him. They say that he can't read. His best friend at the time said that he can't read, and he never denied it. I don't tease him for it. He was a guy who grew up in a boxing gym, right? It's one of these things. You know what you know. You know what you were taught. I didn't teach him about contracts. I didn't teach him about saving. I didn't teach him about investments. Who would have taught him these things? Of course he's broke.
But Chael didn't stop at Floyd. He expanded the critique to the entire sports financial narrative. He talked about the chaos around boxing contracts, pointing out that Floyd announcing multiple fights around the rumored Tyson matchup would drive any promoter insane. In the fight business, timing and exclusivity are everything. And here's the irony. Floyd himself has accused Showtime of shady business practices, highlighting the messy, often chaotic nature of boxing finances. The conversation moves from flashy headlines to serious questions about how money, contracts, and publicity intersect in the sport.
Addict. He's got baby mamas all over the way. What do you mean is he broke? Of course he's broke. What boxer do you know that isn't broke? What a ridiculous question. But it's the fact that they're attempting to tease him. I mean, first off, they're asking the question. Look, I've told you in blue in the face, the numbers that you hear in boxing simply aren't true. Floyd made $1 billion. No, he didn't. Floyd and Conor made $500 million. No, they didn't. Of course they didn't. Nobody's ever confirmed that.
And it's the same thing with the check. I got $100 million for a fight. Oh, you did? Who signed the check?
Whoever signed is going to want credit for it. There's never been a time that $1 million check was written and the dude that wrote the check didn't make sure that somebody found out he wrote the check. So who wrote the check? Floyd's got a whole bunch of them, apparently. He got $1 billion. Who wrote the check?
In the end, what starts as a discussion about Floyd Mayweather's wealth becomes a deeper look at the whole world of boxing hype, sports business, and media storytelling. It raises questions about how much of what we see is reality, how much is myth, and how much is carefully crafted to create a persona that sells fights, builds brands, and keeps fans talking. Between Rogan's skepticism and Chael's sharp, no-nonsense logic, the discussion reminds us that behind every flashy headline,
and I'm only sharing with you, like, the numbers aren't what you think they are, right? The numbers are good and they made a lot of money, but it's not what you think it is. And yeah, of course Floyd's broke. Would you be boxing if you weren't? And it's very tough to be sympathetic